Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has been the place to shop for your industrial needs for over 20 years. Carrying the tools you need to get the job done from the brands you can trust, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has you covered. Brands like Milwaukee Tool, established in 1924 and on display in our Milwaukee Red Zone, the largest red zone in Winnipeg. With construction workers and tradespeople in mind, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools is your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. So come on down to our Winnipeg store location today, located on 1557 King Edward Street in Winnipeg, Manitoba. As we get the volume on, welcome into the MMJHL podcast playoff special, everybody. We're tending to have some problems here, which is unfortunate with how things are lagging right now through our OBS service. So try to wait for things to settle down. And I think they have at this point. There we go. Finally back to normal. I'm not sure how many graphics we're going to be able to put up on the screen throughout this episode, as we want everything to run smoothly. But yeah, welcome into the MMJHL Podcast 2025 Playoff Special here on your home for MMJHL Hockey on G Show Productions on gshow.ca. I'm your host, Graham, the G Show Forsyth. We're brought to you by Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Terrico, as well as goaltenders. Thank you for tuning into this one if you are. If you do enjoy the content we've been bringing your way all season long and haven't subscribed yet, consider doing so, as throughout these playoffs we're going to be posting as much content as possible to promote our streams, which that's what I want to get into to start things off. In collaboration with the Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League and G Show Productions, we have decided, both parties, to make our playoff live streams pay-per-view. Big reason why we're doing this is, well, one, some of that money that we'll be making is going back to the league, as we're going to be doing a 50-50 revenue split. Games are going to be set at $5, which is either $5 to $10 less on what you would be paying to watch these games in person, since there is a charge to get in to watch these games. I believe if you're a student, you get in for $10, but if you're an adult, you get in for $15. I can't speak on the senior citizen discount, but yeah, those are the two main prices. So you're already getting a deal by watching these games with us while supporting the league as well, as some of those funds will be going back to the league. Uscreen doesn't take any profits as well, and cuts of our revenue, which is great. They are a US based company, which I understand that could be a questionable move for us going with a US-based company, but they deal with 95 plus countries, which I think points to the signs of us, being able to trust a company like that, a company that has very good customer service as well. Been speaking to their team; they're fantastic people over there at Uscreen, and they want the best for us during our website launch and all that. Right now we're doing a soft launch, since we do got to get content out for the playoffs, pay-per-view games and whatnot. So I hope this doesn't end up lagging, but this is what our first game is going to be. We're broadcasting tonight. The St. Vital Junior Victoria is taking on the St. Boniface Riels. $5 pay-per-view coverage fee. gshowproductions.uscreen.io is the link that you can visit to be able to purchase this game. It's going to be at 7:45 p.m. tonight, so start time of our stream is going to be at 7:35. I thought that the game was starting at 7:30, but yeah, we're going to update that on the site right away. But this is what the site looks like. We got 3 games available right now, as we're going to be not only covering the St. Boniface Riels and St. Vital Junior Victoria's Elite 8 series in the first round, but we're also going to be covering the Fort Garry Twins and Raiders Junior Hockey Club series and the Junior Canucks and Railer Express series. But this is the homepage of the Uscreen website. If you were to click on, say, Vicks versus Riels Game 3, which is happening tonight, it would bring you to this screen right here, where don't have to really worry about the subscribe to watch fee at this point. More so the $5 fee right there. That's the pay-per-view fee available, and once you click that, it'll bring you to this, where you'll just simply have to give some basic details, your payment information as well. So yeah, I think that this is going to be a fun experiment to see how many people end up watching. Of course, this is a bit of a risk with us, as all of our games have been free to watch before, but gonna try something new. And around playoffs, huge part of this too is to get as many people in the rink as possible, and if our content is free to watch, that makes it more enticing for people not to come to the games. Not that we don't want that, but the simple fact is that the league benefits, we benefit, and I feel like this is a way of being able to do that. If you don't feel like paying $5 for the content, though, you will still be able to watch the playoffs in a certain way. You won't be able to watch the full games, but we're going to be posting highlights, clips from games, in terms of we're thinking of doing plays of the night, maybe the save of the game, stuff like that, in terms of the games that we're going to be covering. So yeah, that's the big announcement here to start off the MMJHL playoff special on the MMJHL podcast here in 2025. Yeah, would really appreciate it if you would support by checking out these games, but if not, thank you for supporting us all season long as well here on the network. For those of you that have been tuning in, we're excited to see the potential that this pay-per-view experiment is gonna draw in terms of the attention, the traction that we may get. It's going to be fun to track that, and it's also going to be fun to cover these playoffs, ladies and gentlemen, as this is how the first 2 games have gone. Playoffs started on Friday in the MMJHL, and so far there's only 2 teams that are up 2-0 in these Elite 8 series. 2 series tied at 1 apiece. Stonewall and Transcona ended up winning the game 1s, or the game yeah, the game one's there in their series. But the defending champions, three-time defending champions, and the St. James Junior Canucks bounce back huge with an 8-5 victory on Sunday evening, so 2 days ago, and Charleswood also took care of business late Sunday afternoon with a 6-2 victory in Stonewall over the Jets. Three of these series are going to be in action tonight. We're going to get into all of that coming up on this edition of the MMJHL podcast. But before we get into any of our playoff content here, I just want to take a look at the final standings from this season. The Fort Garry Twins, first place for the first time since 2000 2001. For the Charleswood Hawks, they ended up moving up 2 rankings from last year. For the Riels, they ended up falling back a spot as they finished third place last season in the standings. As for the St. James Junior Canucks, they took the biggest dip in the standings this year as they were first place for the past 3 seasons. Of course, a tougher road to be able to get to another championship this year, as that's going to be a heck of a series between them and the Railer Express. Raiders were the last team in. The River East Royal Knights and Pembina Valley Twisters ended up being the teams to miss. And for the Pembina Valley Twisters, as we can see there, one of the worst seasons, I think, recorded in MMJHL history. One of the worst we've seen in a while. And pretty crazy because it's unusual to see Pembina Valley not in the playoffs, to see them struggle this much. Pretty jarring to see. Not even 100 goals. The only team to give up 300 goals. And get this, not even a home win this season. The closest they got was getting to extra time once. As a head coach of a situation like that, like, what do you do? How do you keep a positive mindset? Well, if there is any coach that could be the right man to have that good positive mindset, it's Braden Biernaerts of the Pembina Valley Twisters. An interview that we did during while the regular season was going on. It's just been so busy here, so content's been tough to get out. But finally happy to get this interview out now to you all as we talk about this season, the many downs that this Pembina Valley team had, but we also take a look into next season, what the goals and expectations are going to be. And I think the silver lining for Pembina Valley is it can't get any worse than this. And it was great to catch up with Braden Biernaerts a few weeks ago, head coach of the Pembina Valley Twisters, joining this edition of the MMJHL Playoff Special on the MMJHL podcast, which with a lot of great content to come this afternoon. Stay tuned, everybody. It's the bench boss of the Pembina Valley Twisters, Braden Biernaerts, joining this edition of the MMJHL podcast. Braden, the team just played today against the St. Patel Junior Victorias, coming away with a 4-1 loss. Kept the shots close in this game, though, and I mean, things have not been their usual selves here in Pembina Valley this year, as this team's usually among the top contenders. I guess take me through what this journey's truly been like this season, going to the finals last year to sitting here in last place with a 337-2 record.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of a humbling experience when you kind of get your way and feel like you kind of got all the bounces last year and don't get the bounces this year. But yeah, it's just one of those years. It's just the waves you go through in junior hockey. We had an experienced group last year, and they all aged out, and unfortunately, the guys we expected to be leaders this year, didn't really want to jump in and take the reins, and now we got 18 rookies trying to find their way and get through the year.
I guess does that put things into perspective too, how truly valuable leadership is? I mean, you've been a part of a championship team in Pembina Valley as well back in 2018-19 when they won their last one. And of course, that team went to many finals over the years. So yeah, I guess just speaking from that experience, how much of adjustment that's been like dealing with a culture like this year compared to other years.
Yeah, especially this league. This league isn't something you just jump into, coming from high school or AAA. It's a very good league, and you gotta look up to leadership. And we don't. We had, I think, two. We have two guys out of their 10 that could have came back. And when you've got that many rookies trying to find their way, it did create a slow start. But yeah, we're gaining traction now, and we're looking forward to the positives for next year. And each game, I know we get closer to the end of the season, is getting better for us, and we're getting stronger. And it's just kind of good to see we're trending up towards the end of the year.
Yeah, and I mean, there's been some closer losses in there at points in this 2024-2025 season. I mean, going through all of this, I mean, looking into the future, how do you feel like for this young group of players, an experience like this year when, I mean, things have looked bad through the record, but like you said, things are looking up. How you feel like this year's group can truly learn from this year, like you kind of mentioned already, a league that you can't just jump into. How you feel like the struggles this year are going to benefit this group moving forward.
Yeah, and it's just you can't take things for granted. And when I played Twisters, we had a year like this too, where we missed playoffs, and next year we went and won a championship. And it's because it takes years like this to truly appreciate the hard work that it takes, and eventually you get sick of losing, and you don't take things for granted. And that's kind of way we want to take it. And the leadership group we got now, having the experience of this year, and just having to step up in big ways, is just, we think, it's just going to climb into next year.
Yeah, and of course, like you said, I mean, this year could be, part of the plan in terms of this team getting back to the top at some point. What are, I guess, some of the positives you've seen from this group as the years gone along through the struggles on the scoreboard? Any positives you've been able to take away from just how this group's been growing specifically?
Yeah, just mostly rounding out, everybody's game, getting rid of kind of those young mistakes. Like I said, when you don't have like a whole group of leaders, and instead of 3, 4 rookies, you got only 3, 4 veterans. And it takes a lot of time to shape out those the mistakes that you think you can get away with. And once they find that consistency, and like today against St. Vital, we played a very good game, started moving the puck north south, and getting the results we wanted. And it's starting to come together. And it's tough to say, you're already game 42, but it's a very good thing that hopefully we end on a positive note in the last 3 games here.
A big change too from this year to last year was, the goaltending situation, how this team was able to have Logan Enns and Owen LaRock this last season. Now this year, of course, going with a whole new set of goaltenders. What's that been like to see them grow specifically and notably, and almost every single one of these teams' 3 wins this year, the goaltenders played a huge part in that success. How has it been to see them grow specifically?
Yeah, and I mean it's especially tough for your goaltenders who are, getting, upwards to 50 shots a night, and minimal mistakes come back, and they're getting 2, 3 more shots than they should have if you got a veteran to make smarter plays out there here and there. But no, you need a good goalie to step in, and our goalies stepped in, and they're rounding out, doing well. And I think next year they're going to come in with just that much more experience, and hopefully get less shots and more saves.
You brought up at the beginning of this interview after, well, as part of your first answer to the first question in terms of how this season's been a humbling experience from a coaching perspective, given the success from last year to how this year's gone. Can you talk about in more depth how, or some of the things that you've been able to learn about yourself as a coach through this situation and about your staff as well?
Yeah, I think just, having this many rookies, and it's just finding ways. And it's all about, like, coaching to me is just finding ways to get to the guys. Like, last year's crew, maybe you had a different kind of style that, they related to kind of get to the point. And this year you got a kind of a different style, all trying to different ways to get the group you have to understand the goal you have. And like I said, it's just it's a good experience to go through as a coach, being on the high, being on the low, and just taking everything in, and just, getting better yourself as the team staff. And, knowing, not also, like the players, don't take things for granted. You're going to have good years, you're going to have bad years, but, make the best of everything.
Yeah, and of course, this season almost at its end, but this team's still with a chance to shock some teams. Of course, all the playoff spots have been determined at this point, but it would be always nice to, of course, get a victory against one of those top end teams, which this team could have a chance to do against the Fort Garry Twins and Charleswood Hawks to end off the season. How much as a coach do you value experiences like this at the end of the year, given how you feel this group's trajectory has been going upwards in terms of how they've been playing to see how it all pans out against these top end teams?
Yeah, it's good. And, we still do like lots of video and you get to play against the top guys and, you point out some things that they're doing, hey, this is why they're doing that. And there's a reason for it. And that's kind of how we want to model our game. And, those guys have, X many 20-year-olds and that's how they're playing. That's kind of how we want you to go. And, we just kind of use every game as an example on what we kind of want to be or certain teams and how they play and how we kind of want to shape our game against that too. And, yeah, it's definitely good to, you know, like playing a good game with Saint Vital and stay in there and have a good game all game. It proves that they're growing and they can compete.
I guess too. I mean, it's been raved about this season, and rightfully so, how competitive the league and how great it's been for the league with it being this competitive and the top four teams, the amount of points that separate them. I've never seen it this close before. Given that this team's, of course, on the outside looking in, going to be eliminated with this young of a team and how good the league is, how valuable do you feel like this season is to in that aspect of this team got to go against a very talented field of teams out there this year?
Yeah, and you just keep positive. Like exactly, everybody's a very good team, and even like last year, being at the top, playing the bottom, you can't take a night off. You have to be going. You can't take anything for granted. And yeah, it's everything you take is just a reminder, that you got to keep pushing every night. You got to keep the consistency up every night, and you do that, you put in the work, you will be the top team one day.
One last question before I let you go here, Braden, since it is a bit later on this Sunday night. But given that this team, of course, going to be playing for nothing in the playoffs, given that this team is going to be having their season ended early. How is this coaching staff, or have you even looked ahead into next year in terms of looking at what the expectations are going to be from day one heading into camp, or what the process is going to be like throughout this offseason in general?
Yeah, I mean it'll be a busier off season than normal. I think we're going to be working really hard to kind of get some better results next year. And yeah, I mean we take some time to reflect, the year and you think about everything that happened, start from, the end of last year and how everything kind of unfolded to what became this year and you just look at ways how you could do it better and how you could be better and how you can get your team set up to be better for next year. And we're definitely going to put in a lot of work this summer and hopefully come back in the fall with a big splash here.
Well, I will say this, in any situation where this could happen in a team in the season, it's always great to have a head coach that's been able to look at and, hey, say that this team's going to learn from it and be so positive through it all. We can't wait to see how that spirit continues to hold up and leading into great things in the future for this Pembina Valley Twisters team. Their head coach, Braden Biernaert's joining this edition of the show. Braden, best of luck to the team to end off the season here. Personally, would love to see an upset in there against one of these top teams to make things even more interesting heading into the playoffs. Until we talk again, you take care. Thanks for doing this.
Right on. Thanks, Graham.
And Braden Biernaert's head coach of the Pembina Valley Twisters, joining this edition of the MMJHL podcast. I know a few weeks too late, but yeah, it's been a crazy time. MMJHL fans getting this pay-per-view service ready is taking all the priority, so that's why, well, along with also broadcasting playoff action for the MFHL and yeah, just getting the pay per view service ready. This podcast has taken a back seat. I wanted to get this playoff special out on Friday, but then things with the pay per view service it took priority because we wanted to make sure it was ready for at least tonight. The goal was to be ready for Sunday, but we just wanted to make sure all the testing was right and all that. We tested the service today. Everything worked out great. So yeah, we are officially a go for tonight at 7:45 p.m. at Southdale Arena, Southdale Community Center between the St. Boniface Riels and the St. Vital Junior Victorias. But as for the Pembina Valley Twisters, a team that after losing 4-1 to St. Vital, yeah, it didn't end so well for them on the scoreboard. They didn't shock any teams. Lost 10-1 to the St. James Junior Canucks, 8-3 to the Fort Garry Twins, and then 11-2 against the Charleswood Hawks. And I think the best part about that is that the season's finally over. To be blunt, what a disastrous season for the Pembina Valley Twisters. Hopefully, we don't get any lag in here after we bring this up, but just to show you, only 3 wins, under 10 points, under 100 goals, only team to allow 300 goals, and not even a single home win. For a team that has been so historically consistent in the championship contention for the most part, of course. Braden said that there was a season that Pembina Valley struggled where things didn't look so great when he played, but it hasn't been a season quite like this. And for Pembina Valley, it came down to them not getting certain players, things happening behind the scenes, and just players aging out of their program that were big time, right? They dealt off all of their veteran players at the trade deadline or just before the trade deadline. And we're really looking forward to the future with the group that they could potentially have back next year. And then you look to add on to that. You got to look to bring more talent in, better talent if you're this Pembina Valley team, or you hope that the players you have that played a big part, like Austin Spicer, who ended up winning Rookie of the Year, players like that continue to take the next step in their game, and you try to at least make it back in the playoffs next year. But positivity from Coach Biernartz, it's I respect it a lot. I think that it's can't be easy to have a positive mindset, even though it, of course, not a situation any coach wants to be in, ever. Any team wants to be in any organization, but the positivity that could go a long way, and knowing that he's been on a team before that's struggled, and then they made it to the top in 2018-19. Some good character in that aspect at the top of the head coaching chart at Pembina Valley, at this Twister, in this Twisters organization, as I should say. But yeah, for Pembina Valley, on to bigger and better things next year. They hope the silver lining, like I've said before, is it can't get any worse than this, right? It has to get better. So the bar is set so low at this point that next year, hey, it's anything better is going to be a celebration. You have to hope that they get at least more than 3 wins next year, and at least winning at home. I think that'd be huge too. But final standings, these are the playoff matchups, and currently the playoff scores: the Twins, the first place team, playing against the 8th seed in the Raiders. St. Boniface, 4th seed. St. Vital, 5th seed. Railer Express, Transcona, 3rd seed. The St. James Junior Canucks, the 6th seed, and the 2nd seed, the Charleswood Hawks, taking on the 7th seed in the Stonewall Jets. Reseeding will happen in the Final Four, as the highest seed will take on the lowest seed remaining. As for the stats leaders, the point leaders, congratulations to Dean Gorchinski, the first player in quite a while to break 100 points this season. The only player that got close was his line mate and teammate in Carter Howell-Menderes, who had a heck of a year for himself. Rory Neal, suspended indefinitely, but left his mark in his final season on the stat sheet, at least 72 points in under 40 games played. Unbelievable season from the defenseman statistically. But as for Dean Gorchinski, looking back at the stats, all the way back to 2007-2008, there hasn't been a player that's put up over 100 points. So congratulations to the Twins captain on that achievement. Looking for more. Dean and the rest of this Twins team will be, as they're gunning for their first championship in quite some time, since the start of the century, actually. As for the goaltending leaders, Keegan Gordon, no one better than him. 26 wins on the season. He is the wins leader this year. Also almost tying Alex Pauls in shutouts with 4 compared to Pauls' 5. What an unbelievable season for Pauls. Only 2 regulation losses. Connor Murphy jumped up the ranks, finishing 3rd with 17 wins. And rookie goaltender Logan Maroney finishing with top 5 win numbers in a 15-5-1 record. Also 2 shutouts in there for the Rook. As for the goals, the leaders, Gorchinski and Halamandaris were tied. Rubini still finishes in the top 5. You have to expect that he's probably a bit disappointed deep down in this, given that he led in this category for so long this season for the majority of it. Yeah, it's just a credit to how teams started to play him too. And yeah, impressive to see Rory Neal also on this list as a defenseman, also finishing top 5 in assists. Dean Gorchinski finishing with the Triple Crown this year. Well, I guess not a true Triple Crown since tied in the goals category, but still, we'll give him the Triple Crown anyways. Unbelievable season from that duo as they're top 2 in every single critical main offensive stat category, as the MMJHL stats leaders for this 2024-2025 season, brought to you by Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store, which you'll be hearing from them coming up next. We're going to get into some awards, though. Not now, actually. You'll hear from Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia coming up right now on this edition of the MMJHL Playoff Special on the MMJHL podcast. More to come here on this edition of the show. Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, The Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. Keep forgetting to do that in these past few days. I'm muting myself. Well, happy I caught it sooner this time, but yeah, welcome back to the MMJHL Playoff Podcast Special for 2025. Just after 1:30 p.m. here, as it's 1:33 on Tuesday, March 11th, on a day where we got MMJHL playoff action. Everybody, we got MFHL playoff action on the network tomorrow. That'll be free to watch, but of course our MMJHL playoff game day live streams, it's official, they're going to be pay-per-view. Be sure to visit gshowproductions.uscreen.io to be able to buy your tickets today, or to buy your ticket, as I should say, as it's $5 per game as we are charging on our Uscreen service. Funds going to be going back to the MMJHL as well. We're doing a 50-50 revenue split, as mentioned at the beginning of this playoff special. But yeah, as for the awards, getting into it, gonna give my opinion on them here. But congratulations to everyone who won them, no matter what my opinion is going to be on a few of these. I think that Keegan Gordon winning goaltender of the year, the numbers he put up and the amount of games that he played. He was a workhorse this year and finishes with the most wins, almost the most shutouts, as he was almost tied with Alex Pauls. Thought that Pauls could have gotten it since Fort Garry ended up finishing first place, but it was so tight at the top of the standings. Fort Garry didn't finish first by much. Yeah, and Keegan Gordon was just so consistent throughout this season. Dean Gorchinski winning MVP, I think that's the right pick at the end of the day. Most points, tied for the most goals, and had the most assists. First player in a long time to hit 100 points, and was on the top line, a big part of the first place Twins' success this year, as they finished first place for the first time since 2000 and 2001 in that season. So that is a well-deserved award for Dean. I think for Connor Davis, getting hardest working player, the captain for the Riels, embodies everything that they want to be and that they are, a hard-working team that isn't going to back down from challenge, and Connor Davis has exemplified that throughout his time as not only a St. Boniface Riels, but as the Riels captain too. And then when you talk about class in this league, Tyler Rubini, sportsmanship and ability. This guy can not only dazzle on the ice, not only can he shine there, but he is a player that plays with a lot of respect. I've never seen Tyler Rubini do anything uh, over the line or across the line throughout his time playing here in the MMJHL and covering him. All we've had to say about him is great things. And one of the most electrifying players that I've ever gotten to watch in this league personally. Uh, but taking a look at his stats, to take a look at his full penalty minutes from this regular season, because these are regular season awards. Going to be interesting to see the playoff awards will be. But yeah, only 4 penalty minutes this season, and I think that for Tyler Rubini, I mean, the amount of points he put up, and given that, no better choice for that award. For Dylan Smith, coming in as a first-year head coach, been on the coaching staff for the past few years with this Hawks team, a former Hawk, winning some hardware. This Charles Wood Hawks team this season has built one of the best, if not the best, coaching staff in the MMJHL. And for Dylan Smith, I think this award is very deserving. I think that it speaks a lot to how people view him around the league and just the impact he had on this year's Hawks group, bringing them up to spots in the standings. The awards that I guess I have questions for is Defenseman of the Year. Now, Sam Matani and Caden Bruchansky, very deserving of it. And Dean Gorchinski, right, deserving of that MVP. But based on the numbers that Rory Neal put up, I thought that he'd be at least in consideration for Defenseman of the Year. I think that Dean Gorchinski ended up running away with the MVP race, given that, he ends up putting up 100 points this year. Who's done that? No one has done that in such a long time. But in terms of the Defenseman of the Year, Rory Neal was Defenseman of the Month every single month this year in this season. So he's got the point production. He was a very impactful player again this year. Probably the best talent in the league. And St. James, way better when he's in the lineup because of his skill, right? But from what I've heard, Rory Neal has said some pretty bad things this season, in terms of him wearing that C for the St. James Junior Canucks. They got to be quite disappointed because he's now out indefinitely for the first round and has been out indefinitely with the suspension because of things he said on the ice, from what I've heard from some sources that have been accurate all season long. And of course they actually told me that he ended up being suspended, and that ended up being the case. So yeah, Rory Neal, it's left his team in a tough position because they're far better with him in the lineup because of his skill than without him. But it just goes to show that the best leaders, they don't always have to be the superstar player, right? And the superstar players don't always translate into being the best of leaders. But yeah, I think that his reputation around the league this season paired into that, because a lot of teams and parents just hate Rory Neal from just an observer's perspective. He's got a real villain arc behind him now in this league. But yeah, I think that's a big reason why he ends up not being named in Defenseman of the Year for this award, because how couldn't he? He's been Defenseman of the Month for all season long. There's been no one else, and yeah, that's my takeaway on it, why he doesn't end up being named for that award. Sam Matani and Caden Berchanski, very deserving. And Sam Matani, he's didn't put up the most offense he's ever put up in his career, but he just more well-rounded as a defenseman this year and so good in his own end. Very underrated aspect of his game, maybe because he's so good offensively with the puck and has been known for his ability to rush and create in the offensive zone from that D spot. But Caden Berchanski, too, watching him this year, he had a lot of minutes logged for this Transcontinental Express team and, led the offense on that back end, too. So, two great two-way defensemen getting the award nods this year. And as for the regular season awards, they're voted on by the league, members of the league. The biggest, I think, misses on the Rookie of the Year. Now, look, Austin Spicer leading his Pembina Valley Twisters in points this season on a team that was all-time bad. That says a lot about, he's a player that still thrived in a situation like that, being able to lead their team in points. But if we just bring it up, I'm going to take a look at the stats. I can't bring it up on the screen because this computer is laggy. It's unbelievably annoying right now. But when taking a look at Austin Spicer, who very good in his first season in the league, right? 39 games played, 27 points, led his team by quite a few and played 5 games less than the next leading point getter, which was Josh Guilford, which for Guilford, a 2005 born player, he'll be there next year. That would be the hope for Pembina Valley, I'd assume. But Austin Spicer, 27 points compared to Guilford's 18. I get it. He was the best player on a really bad Pembina Valley team and put up, as a rookie, pretty good numbers. And I get it that some rookies were playing in better situations this season, like the rookie I would have picked as Rookie of the Year personally, and Avon Cockrell, because even though Cockrell had some time playing high-level junior hockey before coming to this league, you take a look at what number 27 has done in his rookie season, and honestly, throughout a very stacked St. Boniface Riel's team, this guy stood out the most in a lot of the games that we watched in Avon Cockrell. And, he didn't even look like he was out of place, and I think his background playing at the high level of MJ hockey definitely helped. But when taking a look at him this season, Avon Cockrell, the highest scoring rookie, 2005 born player, ended up having tied for the most assists tied for the 5th most in assists in the league with Riley Netroduke this season at 40. Had 16 goals, 56 points in 41 games played. And you take a look at where he was ranked on the St. Boniface Riel's stats, and he was second on the team in points as a rookie on a very stacked team. So, yes, he benefited from great talent around him, but he, a lot of times, was driving the play and was making slick moves and was able to set up his teammates with high-level passes and ended up being tied 5th in assists. Now, if Netroduke is healthier, he has way more than what he put up, which was 40, but yeah, I think that Avon Cockrell, it's a bit of a snub for him, as well as maybe Delaronde and or Maroney being selected in this, right? Given the seasons that they had, one of the best goaltending tandems in the league for the 3rd-seeded Transcontinental Express. But at the end of the day, I mean, they are just awards, and Austin Spicer still had himself a good rookie season. Just would have picked someone else if that was me, but was not me voting on it, right? But we could vote on this here coming up before we get into our playoff predictions. Well, my playoff predictions, as I'm going to run you through how I think these playoffs are going to roll out and happen. I already got one of my first round predictions wrong in terms of the series scores, so how accurate are these going to be? We'll have to find out. But it's something that I decided to pick was Game of the Year. Which game did I think was the most entertaining on the network this season? And I think it was back when the Twins and Charleswood Hawks were wins, 7 losses, and 1 extra time loss, battling it out for first place at Eric Coy on a Friday night. I think that game was the best of the season, and you'll see why coming up. An absolute barn burner, and a game that needed a shootout to decide its winner at the time, with first place on the line. You won't want to miss it coming up. We got playoff predictions coming up next here on the MMJHL podcast playoff special for 2025. We'll hit you with a commercial break, and then we'll show you the game of the year between Charleswood and Fort Garry coming up next, which could also be a potential finals preview. Is that what we have? Well, you have to stick around to find out next.
Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has been the place to shop for your industrial needs for over 20 years. Carrying the tools you need to get the job done from the brands you can trust, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has you covered. Brands like Milwaukee Tool, established in 1924 and on display in our Milwaukee Red Zone, the largest red zone in Winnipeg. With construction workers and tradespeople in mind, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools is your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. So come on down to our Winnipeg store location today, located on 1557 King Edward Street in Winnipeg, Manitoba. MMJHL Game Day broadcast, this pre-recorded version of this game between the Fort Garry Twins and the Charleswood Hawks, especially on that counterattack. As soon as they take it away, they were trying to get right back into the Hawk zone moments ago to attack. Ended up being an offside called on the play, of course. The Twins pick it up again. Here's Nick Gilberto off the post, and it's in! Hit the inside of the bar, and with that, number 18 strikes first here tonight for the Twins to give them an early 1-goal lead. But you get 2 players that were leaders on the River East Royal Knights. They come over to this Charleswood Hawks team now. The hopes for this team, obviously, going all in to get to a championship. Into the slot, Reynolds scores! And in his first game as a Charleswood Hawk, the new number for Mr. Reynolds, number 20. It's sent all the way down into the Twin zone again, and on it, number 15 in Bazin Eros. Bazin in front, turned aside. That short pass, he received it, but better to make the save was Pauls. Not that time as the Hawks go up 2-1. Into Fort Garry's end as Pauls leaves that for a teammate. The Twins skate this out. Gorchinski feeds it to the middle to Bolshaw. Passed across to Helamandaris, who turned aside there by Gordon. Helamandaris gets it back though. Cross ice feed to Gorchinski. Rip scores! The Charleswood crowd a bit furious about that one, as usually you see that get called. Neufeld gets taken out hard to the ice. Reverse picks the puck up, handcuffing Pauls a bit, but Pauls able to come away with that save. Now Neufeld gets lit up in the neutral zone, but a 2-on-1 headed the other way as that shot turned aside by Gordon. First forechecker in, waited a bit, allowed for the Twins to send a breakout pass out, but into the stick of Matani. A bit of trouble handling it, forces a turnover onto the stick of number 22. And Jacob feeds it, backdoor scores! It's a 3-2 lead for the home side, the Hawks, courtesy of Morrison. It's Vic Fussing weaving in. His shot blocked and sent wide of the net. As this picked up again by Cole Penner. That shot through, scores! As for the teams in action tonight, the St. Boniface Reals right now leading 4-1 against the St. James Junior Canucks. In this game, Helamandaris under the bar scores a beauty! Glavina able to maneuver his way through into the Twins' end. Spins around, fires down low, trying to locate Elliot Lewis. That just out of 19's reach. Takes a bit of a high stick afterwards. No call on the play as Van Alstyne gets it back. Number 14, Vic Fussin into the slot, scores! Gorchinski not out there right now. Right now it's Matani along with Hedlund at the points. Medwick, Gilberto, I believe, as well as Lozano scores! As won by the Twins to the point. Hedlund gets taken out, or Livingstone, that is. Huge hit. Number 22 in Jacob. That short shot turned aside by Gordon again, and Medwick got lit up too there. Puck sent back in to the Hawks end. As skating with it's Stevenson before whipping this down the right wall, cut off by Eric Johnson as Johnson makes his way down low, tries to backhand that pass behind the back out in front, but couldn't get it there. Hellman-Darris tries to take it away. He now gets a quick little pass over to Belshaw, scores! Glavina loses his balance and ends up not cradling that puck. Turnover forced, and there's a wraparound goal! The Twins! 3 unanswered to now lead this one 6-5. 13:28 remaining. This held at the line again by this Fort Garry Twins squad, as they really are getting their cycle game going right now. As that turned over, Balshaw able to, off the post that goes, almost a second. I believe number 29, Caligari, was turned away by Gordon on that shot. Now played up onto the stick. Carlson to the slot. Sperber scores! But the Hawks able to get it right back in again, looking to get in on the attack. But this stripped away by the Twins. Huge hit late on there by Matani. A tie hockey game at 6-6. Who's going to play hero tonight? Here late in this one. Oh, Elliot Lewis. What a move. Another beauty by Lewis. Backdoor feet. Oh, what a save by Pauls to keep it out. Back into the middle as Johnson has that taken away into the skates of a Hawks player. Glavina now skating up the other way. Has Carlson heading towards the net. Nice job to evade that check-in. Gets it over to Reynolds, and Reynolds denied by Alex Pauls. Coming up on a minute left to play here in this overtime period. Gorchinski wheeling in, protects on the forehand, trying to keep protecting this, but can't. It's onto the stick of Sperber. Has White with him, drops it back to White, stays on this! Over onto the stick of David Balshaw, trying to maneuver his way to net, but ridden out along the boards. Huge defensive play there. 0-0 right now in the shootout. 6-6 in this game here tonight. It'll be Rylan Huging, first one on to shoot for this Fort Garry Twins team. Coming in from right to left. Looking to shoot. Almost loses possession of this puck. Got it back. Tried to dangle in on Gordon, but Gordon denies him. X on the board for the Charleswood Hawks for this round. Vic Fussin will be the shooter for Charleswood to start things off. He comes in slow as well. Looking to dangle. Backhand, forehand, but turned aside. So we go on to round 2 of the shootout. It'll be the ever so fancy Dean Gorchinski coming in slowly as well, going from side to side, tries to fake out Gordon and shoot that low glove side, but can't as he's denied on that one. And with that, this sets up for Kalen Reynolds to potentially get his team closer to a win in his first game in the Hawks jersey. His shot denied by Pauls as he was on top of his crease to come out and save that one. Still scoreless here. A player who knows a thing or two about scoring against Gordon has done it tonight here in Hellman-Darris. Looking to do it a third time, but can't quite. Another miss for the Twins. Carlson with the game on his stick. Coming down with a bit more speed. Dangle scores! And with that, it wasn't pretty by any means, but they'll definitely take it. The Charleswood Hawks winning this one here tonight by a score of 7-6 over the Fort Garry Twins. The final in the shootout. Matt Carlson with the game on his stick.
Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools in Brandon takes pride in selling the tools farmers and tradespeople rely on. Like our Winnipeg location, Brandon carries the same tools you know and love. From all the brands you can trust, all in one convenient place. And with unbeatable service, we'll make sure you get the right tools to get the job done. Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools in Brandon, proud to serve Brandon's industrial needs since 2018. Stop on by today at 358 Park Avenue East. And welcome back to the MMJHL Podcast Playoff Special for 2025, as we're getting into predictions coming up here very shortly, as we're also getting into game number 3 tonight of the St. Boniface Riel St. Vital Junior Victorious series. We're going to go live at about 7:35 p.m. since it is a 7:45 p.m. puck drop. Thought it was at 7:30 tonight, but got that wrong on our end. Credit to Icewave Media and Dave Wilson for the great work that they've done with their photos all season long. We used Noah Keating as well as Brady Jaquette, 2 defensemen in this graphic for this game. But yeah, it's going to be live on gshowproductions.uscreen.io. We're going to link it on G-Show Productions. It's going to take you to this pay-per-view screen, or this home right here. We may even take you just straight to here with the link. We haven't decided yet, but yeah, put in all the details, the basic details that you need to pay. And yeah, be sure to hit buy for $5, as that is the best value that is available. We may just take the subscribe to watch fee out for now too, moving forward, and update that on the website, but have not decided yet. But yeah, be sure to check it out. We're going to have playoff games all playoffs long in the MMJHL. We're covering Vic's Riels, as well as we pull up the graphic here actually of the bracket. We're going to be covering Twins, Raiders, Vic's, Riels, and Raiders and Canucks. The Raiders-Canucks game 5, that's going to be set since that series is tied at 1-1. That game will be at East End on Sunday, so we'll have that for you. And then, yeah, however long these series last afterwards, we're going to see which ones we're going to cover. We're going to also be covering Final Four coverage for you all, and we're also going to be carrying the finals, depending on who it's going to be in there. Well, we don't know yet who it's going to be, but we have decided to go into some playoff predictions that we didn't release last year. Excited to be able to do this year, as these were, well, let's get into it right away. My predictions for the Elite 8 round, starting with the Fort Garry Twins and the Raiders Junior Hockey Club. I think for me in that series, it's simple that Fort Garry is too deep for a lot of teams, and I think they're too deep and too experienced for this Raiders Junior Hockey Club team, who has some good pieces, but overall aren't the team that this Fort Garry Twins team is. When we take a look at the standings, by the way, Fort Garry swept them in the season series. But yeah, the most goals in the league for Fort Garry, the second least goals given up when compared to the Raiders Junior Hockey Club, who have the least goals for out of any team in the playoffs and have the most goals against. So already it's a mismatch on paper. I think that for the Raiders Junior Hockey Club, special teams is something that's not bad for them, but then again, Fort Garry is just better in both categories, with the best penalty kill percentage in the league too, now as they overtook St. Boniface as the season went along. But Fort Garry just has so many players that can beat you compared to the Raiders, who only have a few players that can really make a significant difference in this series, unless that whole team plays a few notches above their weight. And even then, I don't know if it's going to be enough. Fort Garry, with the most 20 goal scorers in the league this season, absolutely stacked first line. Defenseman of the year, co-defenseman of the year once again for a second season in Sam Matani, and an unreal goaltender in Alex Balls, who had an all-star season. I'm taking Fort Garry in this one. Had them at 4-1 to win it. Could very well see it being a sweep. I thought, hey, a 16-game win streak for Fort Garry, which is the longest win streak heading into the playoffs, two better than the 2014-15 Raiders, which this year's Raiders team way different than that team was back in 2014-15. Expect, like, the Twins are going to have to drop a game at one point. I thought maybe it would be in this first round, but I feel like they kind of got their crummy performance out of the way early, not having a strong first period in game one. Being down on the scoreboard and coming back in that game, I think that was maybe the Raiders' chance. I think that Fort Garry rolls from here on out to advance to their first Final Four since 2012, 2013. Been a long time for the Twins. But as for the Riels and Victoria series, I had this game 6 in terms of the Riels taking it and advancing into the next round. I think, for St. Boniface, when you look at them compared to St. Vital has game changers when you talk about Tyler Rubini, Rylan Netraduk up front. Blake Goretzky has been a fantastic addition to this team and was also an all-star for them. And I think that they got one of their better goaltenders they've had in the past years in Ethan Pennernet. They also got Mason DeBeck. And yeah, I think when you look at St. Vital, they've been banged up for most of the season. It's an experienced team that has their fair share of 0-3s, and if there's a time to win a championship and go on a run, it's now. They're looking to go on a similar run, except with a happier ending that they went on 2 years ago, going to the finals and being swept against the St. James Junior Canucks. But yeah, they've been middle of the pack in all these years. They finished 5th place in the standings. This year, as the top 4 were clear cut, and it wasn't decided if they were going to play St. Boniface or Transcona. And either team that they were going to play against, it was huge for them to get off to a quick start in the series, to put some pressure on them, which they did in game 1 for the most part, until they collapsed up 4-0. The St. Boniface Riels were able to come back and defeat the St. Vital Junior Victorias in overtime, scoring 5 unanswered, and ended up winning game number 2, 6-1 in St. Vital. Of course, that's the game that's going to be shown tonight out of the 3 that's on the schedule. But yeah, I think for a team that, I haven't even spoken about St. Boniface yet, but the big disadvantage that most teams go up against when facing against the St. Boniface Riels is just the depth they have, and I think that the depth they have paired with the superstar talent, the elite talent that this team also has, is going to be too much for St. Vital to handle in this series, and already has been already. You talk about players having big-time moments. Well, talk about Nathan Brzezinski, who had a hat-trick in Game 2, as well as 2 goals in that Game 1 comeback victory for St. Boniface. You look at their top line with Connor Davis leading the way. Ty McNaughton also is partner in crime on that line. And, also looking at guys like Reeves Sukut, the rookies like him and Avon Cockerell, who have played big roles in this team's success this season up front, and then Cole Davis even, who ended up scoring the overtime winner to clinch that game 1. And then you look at the players that St. Boniface added, as well as at the trade deadline, which St. Vital wasn't that active at this year's trade deadline. But what does St. Boniface do? They go out and add Alex Van Dynes and Mike Hepner. Hepner, being an 0-3 player, adds even more experience to a back end that is fairly young compared to some teams in the league. And Alex Van Dynes, a player that still has a year or two left in this league that they bring in to add in more depth to their scoring. And then they're not done there. Specifically with Pembina Valley, they go out and shore up their goaltending with Owen LaRocque. They already have Mike O'Sullivan, who was top 5 for the season in wins in the league. So you pair that together with just the depth and all the options that St. Boniface has to beat you, and that they ended up winning the season series this year against St. Vital, even though St. Vital gave them trouble. St. Vital, I mean, it's a great chance for them to go on a run because they're as healthy as they've ever been. This team has some of their most skilled players that they've had in their franchise's history in their last years, in Rubini, in Netroduca, and their goaltending's better. It's just, on paper, I don't like the matchup just because of St. Boniface's depth and the weapons that they have. More scoring from this team this year, plus they're the best defensive team in the league. The least goals given up. A team that's so fast and that can hem you in, and I think just as the series goes along, and St. Vital is already really behind the 8 ball, St. Boniface was going to wear them down. But to be honest, ladies and gentlemen, I think that we could be looking at a sweep here. Given that game 1 collapse, how do you come back from that mentally, no matter how good you are, if you're St. Vital? We're going to find out tonight, but I think at this point it's looking like at most a 6-game series, maybe a sweep, maybe 5 games. Tonight is going to be crucial to, I guess, determine the fate of the St. Vital Junior Victorias and if they'll be pushing the series any further past, potentially being swept out of the first round. But yeah, I got St. Boniface in 6 games moving through. Now, a questionable one. St. James and Transcona. I wish I knew that Rory Neal was suspended indefinitely. I thought he'd be back at some point in this first round, but that's not the case. St. James without the best talent in the league on ice, as well as, their most impactful player. But I think that this is an opportunity still for St. James, the players that are there. When we're talking about Griffin Height, Tristan Arneson, you look at, their players on the back end, as I just pull up their roster. One moment. But yeah, a team that was active at the trade deadline, a team that has gone through a lot of drama this season in terms of the coaching change and Rory Neal being suspended for the games that he's been suspended for. But yeah, why do I have them in 7 games over the Railer Express, who have been a really good team this season, a team that's taken the biggest leap in the standings compared to the team that's had the biggest downfall in the standings in the St. James Junior Canucks? Well, I'll explain why I'm still sticking with this prediction and why I think it could very well happen that St. James wins in 7 games, as I have it. And to be clear, I think that the Railer Express can very well win it and move on in this series, and they're a championship contender if they can put it all together. And I think if you're able to win this series against St. James, a team that you lost to last year in the first round, to get some momentum behind you, this Railer Express team could be the most dangerous team heading into the next round. But that being said, for St. James, I think this is an opportunity for players like Griffin Height, Ashton Romanek, Tristan Arneson, Jacob Phillips even, to step up and to prove, along with the rest of this team, that it's not just about Rory Neal. I think for St. James, this is, an unprecedented year for this team in terms of this era, because they've been first place 3 years in a row, but all years aren't going to be the same. And I think that even though Blake Harris and that coaching staff gets fired, they still built their game better and better as the season went along. Now that Ryan Dick and his new staff are in, a new head coach that brings a fresh perspective, that has guided a team to a championship back in 2018-19 with the Pembina Valley Twisters, that's coaching this league, that knows what it takes, has this team playing really good at the end of the season as they were blowing teams out. They finished off with a big 6-goal performance against the St. Vittel Jr. Victoria's to build some good vibes heading into the playoffs. Now they're playing against a Railer Express team where they've had their number throughout their dynasty run in the playoffs. When they've matched up, they beat them twice, once in the semifinals in the first year, and then the next season, or the 2 seasons after, which would be last year, they end up sweeping them in that first round. The reason why I do like St. James too is even when they haven't been fully healthy, this was even before Ryan Dick took over and Neil and even Griffin Height were out of the lineup, this team still looked good with the pieces that they added in with good Branson. They got more stability in net with Logan Enns now. They added in Caden Stewart to bring more offense to the back end. So I think that St. James is a sneaky team, and I wanted to pick an upset. And here's also another reason why I think that Transcona could be on upset alert is, look, we're talking about consistency as the season went along. This was the best team in 2024, the first half of the season. But then in 2025, it was a bit of a nosedive. This was a team that couldn't finish games as often as they were in the first half of the season. They were blowing teams out more in the first half of the year, but in closer games, they've struggled more to close them out. No matter if that's letting their foot off the gas, which they corrected that a bit as the season went along, or just starting off the games without the lead, it's been tough for them to win games. So putting that into perspective, knowing that St. James, even without Neil, has been able to still score on the power play and has still been able to win. They just put up 8 goals on Transcona in game number 2 to Transcona's 5. I think that Connor Murphy also showed a lot of growth as the season went along. And you got to remember, I think playoff experience, it's not the most important thing, but it is important. And even though Connor Murphy didn't have it last year, he's had experience and time to sit back and watch and learn from arguably the greatest goaltender to ever play in this league in Noah Gilbert. Compared to, for Transcona, they haven't had the same type of playoff experience as a team for the returning guys coming back. And as good as Logan Maroney and Sage Delarone were in the regular season, they're rookie goaltenders, right? So I'm going to be interested to see how they respond to the playoff action. This team in Transcona still has, players that have been in this league that have experience. I just feel like St. James isn't quite done, folks. And I could be wrong on this. Like I said, Railer Express could very well advance, and watch out if they do, because that could be huge for them to build up that momentum from a first round win to get a taste of playoff winning. But I'm going to say before Pete, the quest for it doesn't quite end in the first round for St. James, and I'm picking an upset here. With St. James moving forward to the next round, which they would be reseeded to play against the Fort Garry Twins, unless Stonewall is able to win against Charleswood, which I did get this wrong. I thought that Stonewall, given that they got swept in the season series, I had to pick one sweep. I felt like maybe I didn't have to pick one, but thought that, hey, can Fort Garry keep it up? Even though they outmatch the Raiders on paper, I think that the Raiders could have still had a shot at winning the game, but I see that one more so being a sweep. Yeah, I think a bit ignorant on my part to pick Stonewall to be swept, because this is a team with some quality players, a lot of top-end talent that is healthy now too, and Peyton Bateman back in the lineup, which he is one of the most explosive, electrifying players in this league and one of the biggest X factors, and Stonewall way better with him in the lineup. They got really good players in that top 6 in the lineup. Spencer Hunnam has been really good in the pipes, and they got some quality pieces on the back end, but like the Fort Garry Twins, I think the Charleswood Hawks are just too deep on paper and overmatched them as the series goes along. They ended up losing the first game of the series, which, hey, I think for the Jets, they were close in some of the games they played against Charleswood this year, and I think a big reason for that is just their counterattack's really good. This is a team like Charleswood that plays with a lot of speed, that loves to attack off the rush, can get in on the forecheck, and they have some players that can step up and make big time plays. It's just, I like Charleswood and how they're built better compared to Stonewall. I think a more complete team. Keegan Gordon in net has been the most consistent goaltender all season long. And I think for the Charleswood Hawks, they've just been the most consistent team all season long in the league. I know that the Twins ended up finishing first place with 16 straight wins, but Charleswood was kind of always a top 3 team all season long. A team that, special teams wise, that could be the only concern for them. So I think that, for Charleswood, if they can put it together on special teams, and I think that they had a really strong end to the season for their standards too. I think finishing it off strong, and I think that getting that first playoff loss out of the way, now they know what to expect from Stonewall. Now they've tasted defeat against them, and I got Charleswood moving on in 5 games now, as I think they pull off a gentleman's sweep against Stonewall. I could also see it going 6 games though, as Stonewall. Their gamers could be big time in this series if Stonewall's able to keep producing with their guys at the top of their lineup, and they're able to continue to get their opportunities and capitalize. I think that, maybe Stonewall has a chance, but I think overall Charleswood has too much depth and too many pieces to beat Stonewall, and I think we'll come through in 5 or 6 games. I'm rolling 5 games for Charleswood. So that would have our Final 4 set like this, with the Twins taking on St. James and St. Boniface taking on Charleswood. Oh man, who are we going to pick coming up next? Will it be a matchup like we saw the series between the Twins and Charleswood, like that game we saw, which was a classic? Would love to see all of those in that finals if those two matched up. Will it be Fort Garry or Charleswood taking on each other? Fort Garry or St. Boniface? Will the St. James Junior Canucks be making it back to another championship series, which would be their 5th straight technically, or I guess, their 5th straight since they made it back in 2018-19, and then COVID canceling the playoffs back in 2019-2020, and then the season afterwards, and St. James has made it ever since. We'll call it 4 or 5 in a row for St. James. We're going to hit a commercial break here, everybody, and then we'll be back for our Final 4 predictions on this edition of the MMJHL podcast, the playoff special for 2025 here on your home for MMJHL Hockey on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca.
Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, The Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store.
And welcome back to the MMJHL podcast playoff special. Just making sure everything's in order for what we have for our Final Four predictions, which is not that, but game tonight, everybody. 7:35 p.m. is when we're going to go live for that one with our pregame show. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Vicks, Riels, Vicks with most important game of their season as they look to avoid going down 3-0, which, yeah, it'd be a similar spot which St. Boniface was in last year, up 3-0 against Fort Garry. Took them 2 games afterwards to finish that series off in 6, and they would get swept in the Final Four against the Pembina Valley Twisters, who were the second place team. If the playoffs roll out this way, like we got predicted, and St. James is able to pull off the upset, or one of these teams is able to pull off an upset to be a lower seeded team to make it through than the St. Boniface Riels. Maybe St. Vital still makes it through, and then say if the Railers make it through, St. Vital would end up taking on the Twins, and Railers would take on Charles Wood. If all top 4 teams go through, then St. Boniface would be taking on the Twins, and then the Railers would be taking on Charleswood as we reseeded them, as that's how it goes. The lowest seed takes on the highest seed into the next round in the playoffs. Didn't happen last year since all top 4 teams made it through, since Charleswood was the 4th place team. But yeah, as for Gary and St. James, if this ends up being the series, I think that this is where the magic runs out for St. James, possibly. I think their best chance of winning this series is if Rory Neal is in the lineup at that point, because this Fort Garry team, compared to the Railer Express, even though the Railer Express, their goal scoring, they got a lot of depth like Fort Garry. Fort Garry has a lot of depth and experienced players. We can't forget, too, that Rylan Huging has been added to this lineup since the start of the season and quietly had himself another top 10 goal scoring year. Wasn't at the top of the goal scoring ranks this year like last year, but still such an unbelievable piece to this Fort Garry team that I think will be huge as these playoffs go along, the power forward that he is. But yeah, I just think even though St. James has good pieces and they added at the trade deadline, and I hype them up against Transcona, I think that Fort Garry is a different beast. Fort Garry, special teams wise, some of the best in the league, and that St. James has great special teams, but you know, how do you solve a great defensive system that Fort Garry has going on the PK? And then on top of that, you got to try to solve Alex Paul's too. If Rory Neal is not in the lineup for this series until, you know, more so down the line in it, and he's able to return, St. James, their best chance is to split the first 2 games. I think if they go down 2-0, this team is in trouble, because you give Fort Garry any momentum like they've had, I think that Fort Garry probably rolls away with this series. I think that for the Twins, it could be a possibility that they drop one of their first 2 games, but you know, game 3, if they're up 2-1 by then, yeah, I don't think it looks good for St. James in many ways, especially if Neal isn't back at this point. It really depends on when number 7 returns to the lineup, because I think that he just gives them their best chance to be able to go on a run, no matter how good the players on the rest of this St. James squad is. And you know, maybe again it's a chance for them to prove themselves that they're more than just Rory Neal. But in terms of Fort Garry, like, you look at their goal scoring this season, 5 players with over 20 goals, the most in that aspect in the league. You know, I think St. James, their shooters are good, but compared to Fort Garry's, I think it's just their depth, their shooting skill, it's on another level. They're defensively sound. Their defense can step up and make plays offensively. And then their goaltender in Alex Paul's most shutouts in the league. I think he's going to have himself a pretty successful playoffs, in my opinion. And I think that all of those pieces lead into Fort Garry victory. I think they take it in 5 games. It all depends for St. James if Neil comes back into this lineup and when he will. But I just think that, their best chance is to keep it close until he comes back in the lineup. But I just think that if Fort Garry's on their game, they're going to be too much to handle for this St. James team, where the cracks in their roster, not having certain pieces from, those championship runs, like the great leadership they had with Cale Price as their captain, Tyrone Willen back-to-back points leader in the league. I think also not having Brady Whiteley on the back end, things like that, it's when you'll really start to miss those types of players in a series like this against Fort Garry, where St. James may not even be at full strength with the current players they have anyways. So yeah, with all those question marks and uncertainty, and how Fort Garry is just experienced, ready to go, and I think once they get past that first round, they catch some good momentum heading into the Final Four to finally know you were able to win a playoff series for the first time in over a decade. Yeah, I think it bodes well for the Twins. They move through to the finals, which be for the first time since, around when I was born, 2001, the exact year I was born, actually, when Fort Garry last made it. But as for the other Final Four series, as it would be the Riels and Hawks battling away with each other to see who ends up making it through. I really struggled with this one. I think that, outside of Fort Garry and maybe Transcona on paper, just by the stats, Charleswood has had maybe the best collection of shooters in the league this year when we take a look at the damage that Vig Fussin and Penner and as well as Carlson have been able to do, all with 25 goals during the regular season. This Charleswood Hawks team, extremely fast. They're built on speed and hard work, and I think those are two things that, I guess you can teach people to become faster how to do it, but the natural speed this team has been crazy to watch this season. One of the best teams off the rush, and this may very well be one of the fastest playoff series, maybe the fastest playoff series we see outside of potentially the finals in this year's MMJHL playoffs. And of course, Charleswood has the number one goaltender in the league, the goaltender of the year in Keegan Gordon. Best coach in the league in Dylan Smith, with who I think they do have the best coaching staff in the league when you think about the champions they have on it, the experience they have on it, from their video coach all the way to their assistants and their goaltending coach. And it's been a team that's been building, has been to back-to-back Final Fours and hasn't quite been able to get over the hump. They got swept last year against St. James, lost in 7 the year before against the St. Vital Junior Victorias. And who would be standing in Charleswood's way? It would be the St. Boniface Riels, a team that is also quick, built on speed, and how relentless they are on the puck. St. Vital, their back pressure, unbelievable. The way they play defense in their own zone, very hard to penetrate the high danger scoring areas. And it's a team like Charleswood that prides themselves on the culture that they've built, and also a team that was probably the top two biggest adders, them and the Charleswood Hawks, at the trade deadline. When you talk about Charleswood adding in Anthony Jacob and Kalen Reynolds, Eric Krekowitz as well a bit earlier, well, what does St. Boniface do? They shored up their goaltending at the end of the deadline by bringing in Owen LaRocque, Alex Van Dynes earlier on, Mike Hepner too, to bring in more experience to an already impressive decor that has youth and experience, a good mix of that. And that's another thing about these teams. They got a great mix of both youth and experience leading the way. And oh man, it's just, I've been going back and forth on this because the season series was 3-2 in favor of the Hawks, but the last game goes to a shootout. Hawks win the first 2 games of the season series, then the Riels win the next 2 games of the season series. I think the biggest advantage that maybe Charleswood can bank off of is just the consistent brand of hockey they've been able to play more so compared to St. Boniface throughout this year, because there's been more dips in the offense for St. Boniface at certain points in this year, especially at the end of the regular season, where St. Boniface, they were putting up a lot of shots, but the story that's plagued them is that they got goalied, snake bitten, whatever the case may be, only scoring 2 goals out of 50 shots in that final game, where they could have secured third place but fell to fourth by losing to the River East Royal Knights. The Transcon Rail Express won that night to jump a point over St. Boniface in the standings. So it's insane. I had the St. Boniface Riels at first in this series, then I changed it to Charles Wood before I made my picks, and then back to St. Boniface, and then to Charles Wood again. But then today I felt undecided, right? I really struggled to pick who I thought would end up making it through. And I mean, when you make predictions, it's about theory, right? But that theory doesn't always come true. Like the St. Boniface Riels averaging top 2 in most shots per game this season, but their goals for out of the 4 playoff team, the top 4 teams, ranked 4th in the league, even though this team was the best defensive team in the league, and they allow way less shots than most teams in the league, and about 7 less on average compared to them and the Charles Wood Hawks. Even though they defend really well and match up really well to take away Charles Wood's speed, Charles Wood is also really well, extremely coached. Like the St. Boniface squad. And there's going to be a lot of tight games throughout these series. Both goaltenders on both sides are fantastic. Now, can Keegan Gordon keep up his pace and his workload through the playoffs? That's a big question, right? Because he's played so much this season, and St. Boniface, that may be their biggest advantage in this series too, is that they got that depth in the goaltending in their net, where they got not just 1, not just 2, but 3 guys that they can go to. They got the hardest working player in the league in Connor Davis, but Charles Wood is going to outwork you too if you give them the chance to, which, man, St. Boniface could be riding off of a lot of great momentum from the first round, and if this team can get hot and capitalize on their chances with the amount of volume that they put up, I think that Charles Wood could be in trouble, especially if St. Boniface is able to shut things down defensively. I think that special teams too could play a huge part in this series. So given those factors, I think that for Charles Wood, they got more high-end finishers, but St. Boniface has fantastic rookies too that can elevate, and the players that are elevating right now in their lineup. When you take a look at Nathan Brzezinski, their playoff stats so far, as we take a look at them. But yeah, St. Boniface through their first few games of these playoffs have shown that they can score, although St. Vital not as good defensively compared to Charles Wood. I think that St. Boniface, if they can keep this momentum rolling offensively and the way they're defending right now, I don't see how many teams can stop them. I think one of the teams that can are the Charles Wood Hawks, but I think that, man, it's really tough to decide who ends up making it through. Had the same same predicament predicting the Winnipeg Ice and Winnipeg Hours series in our MFHL playoff prediction show. But I think that both teams are, I'll say this, I think both teams are, like I said before, both well built, extremely well built from top to bottom. Both teams have depth, both teams have superstar talent, and both teams have really good goaltending. And I think that the Riels are just a bit deeper all throughout their lineup and have shown to have more success on special teams, have been able to get their special teams going in the playoffs too. And I think for their penalty kill, it's dipped as this season has gone along, sure, but it still ended up finishing top 2. I think that with Charleswood being the most consistent team in the league this season, I think that the only part of their game that wasn't consistent was the special teams, in terms of them ranking in the middle of the pack or near the bottom of the league in some aspects. I think for St. Boniface, that bodes well for them, and I think the only thing that stands in their way is if they get snake bitten and shut down, and they're going up against, yes, the best goaltender in the league in Keegan Gordon, but they found ways to put up quite a bit of shots on Charleswood as this season has gone along. In the season series, they put up 50 in that shootout loss, and it ain't going to a shootout in the playoffs. I think with 5-on-5 play and OT, that would be really interesting between these two teams. But I think this series has the chances and the makings to go the distance to 7 games. I think that St. Boniface is going to tap into that offense that maybe they leave off the board more often than not. I think it's going to come through, and they're going to ride the momentum they're building up in this round 1 now into the latter half of that Final Four series against the Charleswood Hawks to stun the Hawks and win in 7 games in Eric Coy to advance into the finals against the Fort Garry Twins, which we'd have it set up like this. 2 of the best defensive teams, 2 top 4 offensive teams going at it with championship aspirations. St. Boniface would be looking to add their 2nd championship in franchise history. It would be their first time back since they won their only championship in 2014-15, while Fort Garry looks to, well, put an end to the curse once and for all and break that championship drought that they've had for over 2 decades. Find out who we got as the winner coming up next. Also, drop your predictions in the comments as well, how you feel these playoffs are going to roll on and roll out. We're going to throw it to some MFHL playoff game day highlights for you all to get you psyched, I guess, for playoff hockey coming up tonight here on G Show Productions Uscreen page. It's going to be a lot of fun, as we're going to be doing pay-per-view streaming for the first time tonight. Fingers crossed that it goes well, and fingers crossed that these predictions go well too. Coming up next, we'll have the finals predictions for you here on the MMJHL Podcast Playoff Special.
This is game 32. Dial into this first period of action that is about to be underway between the 2 squads here from the Centennial at St. Vital Centennial Arena. Of course, I'm your play-by-play commentator, Graham the G-Show Forsyth. This is MMJHL Game Day on your home for MMJHL Hockey on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca. And him and Rylan Etroduke out of the lineup as Rylan Etroduke still out with injury. Matani trying to dangle through. Number 2 and Philippe loses the puck. That's back into the slot. Big save by Penner. Rebound unable to be put on net there by the Twins. It's down low. Hugan behind the back pass. Medwick denied by that left pad in the slot. This play back in the neutral zone. Hugan some silky mitts to evade a defender. Gets it back now into the slot for Medwick. Turned aside by Penner again. And a big hit there along the boards by Tyler Rubini. The Victoria zone won by the Twins. Played D-to-D. Off the skates of Caligari, and that he whiffs on it off the board. Says, oh, Devin Superman pass! Denied off that chance was McLeod. So what a pass there, a feed from Blake Lee. Could have been assist of the year. Worthy off the bar. That rings for number 19. His shot just turned aside by Penner as he just gets a piece of it. Back to Halamandaris. He unloads a shot. This time scores. This stacked Fort Garry power play connects, and it didn't take long for them. Only 16 seconds in. He's got his Twins up 1-0. Cross ice to the Leeds point leader in Gorchinski. He dazzles his way through, rebound, scores! But net off. This one coming back. Cross ice, and there's levels to that attack for this Twins team, like I talked about earlier. It's back Canoe. He tries to shoot that through a screen and on net, but couldn't get it there. As back to Canoe, his shot denied this time. Penner makes another save. Possession on this penalty kill. We just saw there with them sending it down. The Vicks get it back. That cross-ice feed catching up to it was Luke Elliott, building speed up that left side. Pass into the slot. Kirkness gets it to the net, scores! Number 9, Tyler Rumney puts home the loose puck. The captain for St. Vital ties this one up at 1 apiece. It's held in at the point, but oh no, turned over off of the blade of Jaquette. 2-on-1 developing. Neufeld, his shot turned aside by Penner. The Vicks goaltender continues to stand tall in his crease. Well, it's right back to Nell off of the end boards. Nell looks to go for a escape, but intercepted, pickpocketed by Canoe. His shot turned aside by number 29 in Penner as Penner gets aggressive. As mentioned, the one shot earlier on, a heavy one from Carter Howell-Mandaris to open up the score. And maybe here again, Howell-Mandaris in the slot, almost alone. His shot turned aside by Penner this time. That rimmed all the way around to Medwick. Tried to fire that pass towards the net, but couldn't get it there. Willis was taken out by a Twin. Now that to Matani, he's denied. Can't be whacked out by Luke Elliott. Held in by Matani. Instead, into the slot, Howell-Mandaris denied by Penner. By the Twins, and DDD in their own end before working it up towards the net. Balshaw unable to unload on the backhand as Philippe was with him right away. As the Victorias look to work this puck. A bit of patience. First, Gorchinski strips away a man of the puck. Almost gets to it first into the slot. Howell-Mandaris can't get that through on net cleanly. As Hedlund works his way up in the play, activated into the slot. Tried to whack that away from Philippe. Now Hedlund gets it. His shot turned aside by Penner in the slot as Hedlund took out hard into the corner. As this turned over high up, Livingstone worked his way in, but couldn't get a shot off. That low slot scores! With all the time in the world to make something happen, and it's Ethan Johnson from behind his own net. Fed it up into the neutral zone. High hit late on Gorchinski. And with that, a hard-fought 2-1 victory as Fort Garry gets themselves, of course, staying in the win column.
Well, it was not a playoff game from the MFHL that we showed. We showed an MMJHL game instead. Vicks and Twins, which could potentially be a Final Four matchup, depending on how St. Vital ends up holding up in their series against the St. Boniface Riels, as game number 3 goes tonight at 7:45 p.m. on G-Show Productions. New service on Uscreen. gshowproductions.uscreen.io is where you can check out the MMJHL playoffs, as they will have a $5 pay-per-view fee. As 50-50 is the revenue split between us and the league, so some money going back to the league to help benefit them as well, which I think is fantastic, and we hope you all agree. But as for the MMJHL playoff predictions that we are going to finish off with here, in terms of, well, the finals being the St. Vital, or St. Boniface Riels making it through to face off against the Fort Garry Twins. This would be the best defensive team in the league taking on the best offensive team in the league in Fort Garry, best defensive team in the St. Boniface Riels. Both fantastic on special teams. Penalty kills, very strong. Two of the best in the league in this respect. And yeah, both teams with superstar talent, although I feel like Fort Garry just has a bit more. And when you look at their goaltending, even though St. Boniface is the deepest in this respect, now with the addition of Owen Larocque, and St. Boniface can defend you so well. I just look back to that most recent regular season matchup where Fort Garry dominated St. Boniface and had the recipe to stop in this team, to shut them down, didn't let them penetrate in the middle. And I feel like Fort Garry, if they get to that point, to the finals, where you're able to keep up that momentum, if they're able to play their game, there's not many teams, if any, that can, I think, beat this Fort Garry Twins team in a best of 7 series as deep and as hardworking and as fast as the St. Boniface Riel's team is. I think that in this series, it's also going to be where, the experienced players like Sam Matani, Dean Gorchinski in his last run. I mean, you look at the best players for this Fort Garry Twins team, they probably had the most experienced group coming in with their age, and I think that's where it could begin to show in a series like this, and that could be the skill and where that ends up taking over in that regard for Fort Garry. I think that St. Boniface is going to stick with them in this series in games, but I think that Fort Garry is just going to have the edge throughout. This is where I think that their 5 20-plus goal scorers are going to do their thing. And we also can't forget as well that they can get offense from the back end, and Sam Matani and Ethan Johnson being the 2 main focal points there for this team. Now, how does St. Boniface win this series? Well, you hope that you're able to put up the same type of volume as you've been able to prior, and that's probably how they make it. Putting up those gaudy shot totals, as well as limiting teams by quite a bit. But you ought to be able to capitalize on those chances, and I think that St. Boniface will, as these playoffs go along. And I think in this final series, there's going to be times where I think St. Boniface is going to win a game or two throughout the series. I see it going 6 games, maybe even 7, but I think this is where maybe that inconsistency comes back, and St. Boniface runs out of that offensive gas that they could have in the tank. Or maybe it's the Fort Garry Twins who run out of gas and can't keep up what's been the highest level of consistency at the end of the season with 16 straight wins. It's just that I think that once Fort Garry gets into the finals, I feel like they're going to be so locked in that even if they drop a game, I don't think it's going to matter this much for this Fort Garry Twins team. It's been the best team in the MMJHL who has won it in the past 3 seasons, and that was the St. James Junior Canucks. And I think this season the best team in the league is the Fort Garry Twins. And as many times as I maybe doubted this Twins team and had some questions about their coaching, I don't think that that's going to matter. I think that this group is really special, and they're truly on a mission of wanting to taste playoff success. And I think once you get it, you don't really want to let that go. So for me, I think that the Fort Garry Twins are going to be MMJHL champions in 2025. As that is the wrong one. Whoops, we'll just update it here really quickly. But yes, Fort Garry, as we still try to find it. One moment. As yes, the Fort Garry Twins would end up winning the championship, and that should say 6 games. My goodness. One moment here, everybody. Let's look to find it. Unfortunately, unfortunate that this is happening right now. That is really unfortunate. But I guess we're going to have to roll with it. Okay. 7 games instead is the prediction, as the Twins, if they're able to bring this one home, which this would happen at Century Arena, it would be their first championship since, I just want to confirm this, but it would be their first championship since 1999-2000, where my Uncle Mark was behind the bench, which is pretty crazy to look back and say that man, I wasn't even born at that time. That was a year before I was born that the Twins ended up winning their last championship. So yeah, it's going to be fantastic playoffs either way, no matter who brings it home. It could very well be that Fort Garry could run out of gas. They've been winning a lot, and it's hard to keep that up, right? But I just think that this is a special group. They've shown it this season, and why not just shut up and not even doubt them at this point, as usually when that happens for myself, I end up being wrong anyways in the end. Yeah, no matter what happens, though, during these playoffs, I think that we're in for a treat. I think that this has a chance to be, well, the most entertaining playoffs as a whole since we've come back from the COVID-19 pandemic. No disrespect to the St. James Junior Canucks, just dominance sometimes. It gets a bit predictable after a while, and I think that for this year, St. James could very well, maybe they catch fire and prove doubters wrong and go on another finals run. But I think we could very well be seeing a new champion this year. For me, it's the Fort Garry Twins defeating the St. Boniface Riels in 7 games in the championship series this year to claim the Jack McKenzie Trophy. Who do you got winning it all, MMJHL fans? Is it the Twins? Is it the Riels? The Hawks? Maybe even the Railer Express? The Vicks even? Maybe one of those 8 or 7 seeds. You never know what one could be thinking. Could it be the Canucks who end up four-peating? I'd love to end up hearing your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you to everyone that has tuned in and followed our coverage all season long here. Don't you worry, just because our games are going to be paid for moving forward for these playoffs, we're not sure what's going to happen next year, but no matter what next year, we're still going to be producing podcasts like this. They're going to be more regular, as we won't be as busy, especially at the start of the regular season. And we're going to find ways, to have more consistency throughout the playoffs next year with podcast releases. But we're also thinking of getting into producing maybe videos on a specific topic and adding in some really cool visual effects in terms of some nice photos to overlay over top of what we're talking about. Kind of like video essays that are produced here on YouTube. I know some sports pages have done it, some sports channels, but lots of exciting stuff coming up for the future here on the MMJHL podcast for next season, and still for this season. We're going to cover all of the playoffs from here on out moving forward on the network. We're going to have updates every single week of what has been going down from the Elite Eight to the Final Four all the way to the championship round, and we can't wait to cover this race for the Jack McKenzie Trophy this season, as who's going to win it. Even though we made our predictions, we're not even sure, as it was our closest finish in the top 4 we've ever seen this season in terms of those seedings. Playoff matchups, which I think are very intriguing in this first round too, that are going to get even more interesting as we roll along here in the playoffs. Be sure to hit this link to be sure to access the live stream tonight, which will be pay-per-view. We'll also have it linked on our website. It's also going to be linked on the MMJHL's website beside the Riels and Victoria's game. And also, if you just want to simply visit gshowproductions.uscreen.io, you can find it there too, as we got that link on our screen here. Special thanks to Terrico, Goaltenders, McKen, Fasters and Tools, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia for sponsoring another edition of the MMJHL podcast for the MMJHL Playoff Special for 2025. I hope you enjoyed this one, everybody. If you did, consider subscribing, leaving a like, potentially sharing, and turning on notifications. All of this helps us get seen by more people on the platform, as well as helping you stay up to date if you turn on notifications and subscribe. You'll get a nice little message showing that we are live and producing either this content or any other stuff that we broadcast here on the network. MMJHL pay-per-view live streams all week long this week. 4 games for sure coming up today, or I guess tonight, Thursday night, Friday night, as well as Sunday at East End Arena. Till then, everybody, for our free content, enjoy the MFHL Playoff Game Day live stream we'll be doing tomorrow between the Winnipeg Ice and Winnipeg Avers, as the Ice look to make it back to the finals by winning that game and punching their ticket for what would be a 4th or 5th straight season for the Avers, looking to keep their season alive. We got the Buffaloes podcast too, our Pilot Mountain podcast, coming out tomorrow. So lots of great stuff that is still free to watch on the network for you all too. Until next time, though, MMJHL fans, I hope you enjoyed the 2025 MMJHL Playoff Special. I've been your host, Graham the G Show Forsyth, giving you the peace out and waving so long. Enjoy all the great hockey content coming your way, the great MMJHL Playoff action coming your way, MMJHL fans. And we hope to see you all, tuning in and, to our pay-per-view streams here during these playoffs. We do appreciate your support if you do so for our MMJHL Playoff Game Day live streams. Until next time, everybody, we'll see you then. Take care. Thanks for tuning in to the 2025 MMJHL Playoff Special. And you're home for MMJHL Hockey on G Show Productions on gshow.ca.